Welcome to part 2. Let us continue to review the character of the beast based on chapter 13. Also in part 3, we will be presenting the character of a woman in chapter 12 and two prophets in chapter 11. May the Lord grant you peace and joy during this review time. God bless. So let us get familiar with chapter 13. It is very interesting, right? I would say I was shocked myself how simple it is. God somehow covered it up, so it's not left on the surface since it's not intended for the curious, but for those who will seek. So let's look at chapter 13. It has also this character, the beast, but from a different angle it looks at him. It explains how he will receive power. This chapter is not an ordinary one. 8 times we encounter the word given or gave. Nowhere else in the scripture it is done like that. He will receive the power from someone or some authority. So let's look at why it is like that. And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw the beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads. And on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads were blasphemous names. Another detail that I would like to explain, that there are primary things that exist, and then there is a background details. Let's say, what role does this flower play in your church? It just creates a feeling of comfort, right? But I would tell, this is your senior pastor, he's like a green olive tree among you, this is an image of him, and these branches are the brothers, and so on. Would this have to do anything with the reality? No, it's just something I made up. Where there is something that matters, angel explains. But where it is just a background, he doesn't pay attention to it. If the angel doesn't explain, we shouldn't make anything up. When we understand the main things, then the secondary things don't make a big difference. They're just a background and are left like that. It is very important. You will see that the book of Revelation is then very readable. I would say, to me, Revelation is more understandable now than some parts of the Bible. They contain more complex truth, much deeper and more serious. The angel pretty much explained everything that we need to focus on. So let's read something in chapter 13. We see that the same beast as in chapter 17 with 7 heads and 10 horns. We can understand the meaning of this yourselves, right? He will be the 8th, and 10 horns are 10 kings that will be with him. So let's look at the word gave. It first appears in the verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, his throne, and a great authority. So here you can see a comparison, but this is just a background that shows his habits. There is no need to get carried away by the details. The key part here is in this passage. And the dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and the great authority. Who is the dragon? It is Satan himself. In chapter 12, he is presented like that. The ancient serpent, dragon, it is Satan. So to whom will he give his power? To the ruler number 6, that stepped down from the ruling and then returned to the rule again. Somewhere during his reign as an 8th, Satan will give him his power, his throne, and great authority. So never before has Satan done that. Never. This is the first time in history, the only time. in essence, it will be the embodiment of Satan. So it will be the first time that the beast will receive from Satan this power to act. Next one, in verse 3, we find this word again. Let's read. I saw one of his heads as if it has been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. We will talk about this mortal wound later, so let's continue. The whole world was filled with wonder and worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. So who gave the authority to the beast again, shown by the text? The dragon. So, verse 5. There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. So we see that having power, he will behave very arrogantly. He will not consider anyone equal to him. He will act like a god and as a king. That's how he will behave. So, by whom was it given? By dragon. Now, the second part of this verse, it says, he gave him the authority to act for 42 months. Is it Satan now? Or given by who? No. He doesn't control time. This is not in his power. It can only be given by God. And God will allow this person to rule over the world for 42 months. It will be God's decision precisely, 42 months. When some say the beast will rule for 7 years, those people are mistaken. Nowhere in the scripture does it give 7 years for the rule of the beast or Antichrist. I say this openly. I have led over 300 seminars and no one has disputed this. The Bible does not have a single text confirming this idea. There is something in the book of Daniel in chapter 9, but that counts only towards the nation of Israel. And even then, the first 3.5 years are related to the ministry of Christ. I could bring up many historical references and show the counting from the decree to rebuild the Jerusalem. There were 4 decrees. I could give the years. If anyone curious, I can give that information. And the remaining 3.5 years of the 7-year period there relates to the ministry of 2 prophets in chapter 11, and we will talk about that tomorrow. But this has absolutely nothing to do with Great Tribulation. And if you have any arguments, the brothers will show my information. You can write to me. I will be ready to discuss and conduct a dialogue. But so far, no one has able to make good arguments because this is not in the scriptures. It is just that someone created this whole idea of theology, a 7-year period of Great Tribulation that does not exist. This ruler has a certain time, and this period of time will be especially difficult. 42 months is 3.5 years, but by no means 7 years. So God allows the power received from Satan to be realized in this world. God will allow, and it will happen in the last 42 months before coming of Christ. Let's read further, verse 7. This word we see twice more. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. So the first part was given power to wage war against God's holy people, the saints, and to overcome them. Is this by who? By dragon? No. I think by God, because God allows them to be conquered. So the question arises, if the church is no longer on earth during this hard time, where did these people come from? These holy ones. It is at this time, during His rule, that God allows for them to be defeated. We will touch on this information in more detail tomorrow in the 20th chapter, when we'll be discussing in the chapter 12 the pre-tribulation rapture and post-tribulation rapture. So who gave? God gave. He allowed him to behave in such a way that even the holy people won't be able to counter him. In chapter 6, the fifth seal was opened, and these saints cried out to God, who remember what they cried. How soon will you avenge our souls? And they were told. What was the answer? Wait until the rest that are killed. This conflicts greatly with the theology that we hear today, which says that God will give great victory. But here God allows the death of the saints until the number of the fellow saints that will be killed will be completing that number. Only after that he will avenge. Now the second part, and it was given the authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. By whom? Here I think it's 50-50, so God allowed, but the Satan gave him. Because, for the most part, the control of the world is under Satan's hand. Remember, when he was tempting Christ, he said that the kingdoms of the world belong to him, and that he will give it to Christ if he would have bowed down to him. So the Satan gives it, but God allows. But the rest applies to the other character. And these two beasts act in a pair. There will be two beasts, meaning two people. One will be a politician. Perhaps his so-called spirituality will consist only of going to the temple several times during the holidays to light up a candle. That's all his spirituality. But the second one will be a religious leader. We will see him in verse 11, and they act as a team. They act together. It is interesting that this form appeared in the modern Russian leadership, a team. It is interesting, right? And we find in this book of Revelation that it touches on politics, but we need not to follow the politics. We cannot afford to be drawn into politics. We have no right to allow this as Christians, because we're out of politics. But we should certainly carefully compare the politics and what events recorded in the book of Revelation. So we see in verse 11 of the chapter 13, there is also a man, but look at his appearance. Let's read. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. So what does this image tell us about the beast? The second beast, that is, according to the text. He's a man of God, right? He has horns like a lamb. Looks like a man of God, but what's inside? He spoke like a dragon. So he will be a religious leader, the false prophet. He will be fulfilling the plans of Satan. Who is it? The Pope? Or the Orthodox Patriarch? I don't know. But the scripture shows how this team will work out. One ruler conquers the world, and the other creates a religious foundation, form of new religion for him. And two horns? No particular meaning, but it only emphasizes that he will act as a lamb. That is, from the outside, he will look like a man of God, but on the inside, he will be very satanic. He will speak like a dragon. He will creep into the hearts of people. So that's how their team will work. There are two more words given, addressed namely to the second beast, in verses 14 and 15. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image of the beast, who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. So let's pay attention here, that in the verse 14, the signs which it was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast. By whom it was given? The authority. I believe as well it was from the dragon, because he will be performing the signs. I would like for you to make the conclusions from the text yourself. It will be demonic signs. It might be something similar that happens in Jerusalem, where the gracious fire comes down every year. Have you heard of that? Maybe something similar, maybe something even more powerful or more meaningful. So he will receive these capabilities, and he even makes the fire to come down out of heaven to earth before people. So he will be called a man of God. He will take over the hearts of people, because obviously the supernatural will be very visible. and he will show himself as a man of God, but he speaks as a dragon, deceivably. And the second part, pay attention to verse 15. And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak, and he will cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. What can be the image of the beast? It can be a picture, a monument, a small pin with a picture, or anything else. But this image will have some kind of supernatural power. It will speak and act so that all will be killed who does not worship. I could not understand this for a long time. So sometimes I use the pronoun I, but we researched this together, and I don't want to hide behind the pronoun we. I want to carry all responsibility for what I say. So for a long time, it wasn't clear to me how this could be. So one example I saw when I was at the airport once. It gave me an illustration of how it might be set up. So I watched over some displays and looked at changing displays like televisions. And it came to me, so it could be like smartphones, set up like cameras, screens, that would every so often show the image of the beast. And what will happen? What needs to be done? Then people will need to worship. And verse 16 tells us that. And he causes to be giving a mark on their right hand or their forehead, and causes as many do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. I first talked about it in the year 2011, but nowadays, even more so than before, camera surveillance is increasing every day. So imagine for a second that this image of the beast would appear on your personal device as additional means of security access. And worship means to bow down to show respect. And in case when someone ignores the required worship, what then? Can it be recognized or detected? Of course, today the capabilities of remote access and control of devices are incredible, and we hardly realize how vulnerable and accessible they are. Phones, tablets, computers, etc. So if the required worship won't be practiced, then alerts would go out and the immediate actions taken. There will be no other option during that time as to be killed. Those who won't bow down will be killed. There will be no chance practically while living on the territory of the beast, no chance to escape. It might be somewhere very remote parts of the planet, hard to reach places, among some tribes where technology doesn't even matter. But for us, technology is everywhere, so it matters greatly. Anyone who doesn't bow down to worship will be killed. So this system is already in place, and he causes all, the small and great and rich and poor and free, men and slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand and their forehead. So we have church services in Canada, and I drive there twice a week. And I have a special pass Nexus for crossing the border on a special Nexus line. And I don't even have to show any other documents. I just drive up to this kind of apparatus about this size, and inside my car I hold this card. And literally, about 3-4 meters away from the inspector while I'm driving up, for those couple of seconds he has all of my information on his computer. He asks if I'm carrying anything. I say no, and he says bye. So in our days, we don't need to change even anything at the border. Everything is ready. If we have this mark on our hand or forehead, that's very convenient. So this system will be placed by the eighth ruler, will be universal. It will free people from many problems. Because, for example, by removing physical money and switching to purely electronic form of currency, it brings massive benefits. For example, cash can be forgotten, lost, or stolen, right? But this system is convenient, no need to bring it with you. And the form of electronic control is incredible. All transactions are visible, can be traced, and blocked if necessary. It might even tackle the issue of corruption, right? Some countries like Russia and Ukraine suffer greatly from that problem. That mark would be always with you, under your skin, and it is practiced in several places as trials, especially applied to household pets. Very convenient. Imagine how people get lost in our days due to memory loss. left his house and got lost and didn't know where to go. They will find you right away. You won't be able to hide. They will find you anywhere, even underground. So that's very convenient, isn't it? So any other information can be attached to it. Medical, personal, your medication, finances, or just about anything else. See how many benefits. But at the same time, having these benefits, he will add something of his own. He will enforce worshipping. He will deceive people with these obvious advantages. And then he will begin to act. And it will be connected with worship now. But that worship is equal to betrayal. And a Christian cannot afford to worship someone else. Then the question arises, if, of course, we will live during this time. We probably think that we will be raptured earlier, right? It would be nice. Some saints will be here during his reign, and we will talk about it tomorrow, whether the church will go through it or not. If this happens, then what should we do? What should we consider? What should we think about? Someone told me once, oh, it is not important to know all this from Revelation. It's very complicated, hard to read. It has some unknown images. He said it's only important to be ready. But I told him, but to be ready, does this not include knowing? Being ready means knowing as well. Remember when Christ said to Israel, because you didn't know the time of your visitation. But they should have read the situation. We need to have the knowledge about it in order to be prepared. See how these two will work together. The beast comes to power, and with him the second one, and both of them, one as a religious leader and the other as a ruler, will work together as one team in this country in the north. Can we say we live in this time? Now, this is for us to observe. Because what is happening in the Russian leadership is very similar to what is said in the book of Revelation. But is it so? I will not say 100%. We need to recognize the signs. And these signs are revealed in the scriptures, so that we are not mistaken when these events begin to occur. So let's talk about the mortal wound, because we will need to pay attention to this particular important sign. So in chapter 13, in verse 3, I saw one of his heads, as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. You should remember that one of his 7 heads is the beast himself. He is the 6th who will be the 8th. This is the beast himself, and let's read verse 12. He exercises all the authority of the first beast, and his presence, and he makes the earth and those who dwell on it to worship the first beast whose fatal wound was healed. So verse 3 says the mortal wound was healed. And here in the verse 12, again it speaks of the beast, the ruler. This is emphasized here, that it talks about him, and the mortal wound was healed. And then verse 14, again. And he deceives those who dwell on earth because of the signs which was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on earth to make the image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. So note that the mortal wound is from the sword. This is not a poisoning, right? Or something like that. What else can it be? He'll be shot or maybe blown up? Probably not really. Probably assassination. He will receive this mortal wound that will not give him any chance of survival. But he will live because the dragon will be involved in it. And he will heal this person from his wound. I believe that is the central sign by which we can recognize the appearance of the beast. Because until that, when he gets the wound, he will not be any different from any other ruler. And nothing will be happening before this time. And only being in the deadly agony between life and death, here I suppose, these are my assumptions now, consider them in such a way. He will ask Satan for help, and the devil himself will restore him. And from this moment, he will receive power and will act as the beast or Antichrist. That's how the appearance of this person will happen. And he will act for 42 months, which is 3.5 years. And specifically about him, it is said in Revelation chapter 6, where it starts with the removal of the first seal. We can read the first 2 verses. Then I saw when the Lamb broke one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice of thunder, "Come." I looked, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. So some interpreters assume that this rider is the Christ. So let's take a closer look. Is it talking about Christ or somebody else? Let's pay attention to this rider on the white horse. He has a bow and was given a crown, a symbol of power. Note, he didn't have it, but he will receive it at the end. Does Christ have it? He said it himself that he has power in heaven and the earth. And he has keys of the hell and death. Christ already has it. So next, this rider went out conquering. He isn't a conqueror yet, but he went out like a conqueror. So remember what we read about him. He will behave with pride and blasphemy. His goal is to conquer. But Christ has already conquered, so it has nothing to do with Christ. So who is this about? This is about that ruler, the beast. It is with him that the removal of seals begin. This information starts to appear. And when the first seal is opened, the beast appears. So this period of 42 months is started with him. And all events from chapter 6 to 19 take place during this period of time, 42 months. All events, seals, trumpets, and vials. 7 seals were opened in the 1st century when Son of God, Jesus Christ, took the book from the Father and opened the seals. Thus 7 seals contained only information that was hidden. And when Jesus lived on earth, then he once said that no one knows the day or the hour, that not even the Son knows. Remember this moment? This was before the seals were opened. Does he know now the day and the hour? I think so. There's some interesting information we find in the chapter 10 when 7 thunders said something. And John wanted to write it down, but he was told to hide it. The only thing that was hidden from us, and we still don't know that. But we can say now that Jesus knows the day and the hour. And not only now, but even then when he opened the book, when he took it from the Father and removed the seals. So this information became available to us since then, and it is laid out by the angel to John and then to us. So the opening of 7 seals has already happened, and that's all known. But when Jesus says he doesn't know the date of his coming, they don't take into account that Jesus was saying when the seals weren't open yet. But the seals are now open, and opened in the 1st century. So when I'm asked if the seals are open, I say yes, completely. All of this information is available to us. So this is everything that is related to the beast, his appearance, where from, the sign, and how we can see this time. Thank you.